his way.
Not even Kai Bodhi top 8's 5 events in a row.
Especially not 5 SCG Opens.
He's never done it yet.
No, and especially when you consider some of these Opens were over 900 people. An impressive run. Yeah, trying to set history here. Nathan Herkimer playing blue-white-red flash. And as we've been seeing all day, William Jensen on Jund.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a battle between the two top dogs of the format as of the World Championships a couple weeks ago. Jensen's been playing mostly against green decks and aggro decks this weekend. However, now we're going to get a chance to see him test his wits against an actual full-on control deck, or at least a flash deck, a blue deck.
Yeah, Herkimer, a little bit of a deviation from the standard list. He's playing Aurelia, the War Leader, and actually some Thundermaws in the main deck, but otherwise still more or less looks like what you'd expect out of a flash deck.
Yeah, including, he's even got the Geist of St. Traffs in the board. But starting off with a Sacred Foundry and 2 Glacial Fortresses, ensuring that his mana is just about perfect, assuming he hits his 4th land drop, which he does.
Yeah, both players actually have just traded land drops. Herkimer was on the play. 4 lands, no spells. Huey doing the exact same thing.
And now we have a clock.
Yep.
Herkimer commits a Restoration Angel, which is certainly not a trivial threat against Jund. I mean, it doesn't hit the hardest in the world, but it is a little challenging to deal with, although it looks like Huey does have Mizzy Mortars. Oh, here we have the much more challenging.
Yeah, so this is unexpected where you see the blue-white-red flash deck becoming the aggro deck, but we saw it Herkimer with an end step, turn 4 Restoration Angel, turn 5 Thundermaw Hellkite, knocks Jensen down to 12 life.
So we see a Thragtusk trying to just buy himself some time so that he can live long enough to find an answer to that Hellkite.
Yeah,
he's got the Mortars for the Restoration Angel, but he does not yet have an actual bona fide answer to Hellkite.
Yeah, so Jensen's going to go down to 9 here. It looks like he has another Thragtusk, or he has some ways to kind of buy himself some time, but what are the answers? So in his main deck, what are the ways he actually can deal with the Thundermaw Hellkite?
Yeah, he has access to a couple of Putrefies, a Dreadbore, a couple of Tragic Slips, a Doomblade, and that's part of the reason why he doesn't want to kill the Angel yet, is because he's playing to his outs. He knows that Tragic Slip might be a way to kill the Thundermaw, so he needs to make sure he can still kill a creature.
Right, so it looks like he's going to go ahead and right now Mortars the Angel.
And with, it looks like Scavenging Ooze, gives Jensen a way to get up to 10 life, and if he can get one more creature in the graveyard, wow.
Down to 5, wow, and end step.
This is just nothing but flying beatdown from Herkimer.
Yeah, so Herkimer's deck actually only on 9 creatures we've seen though. 2 Restoration Angels and a Thundermaw Hellkite is now going to put Jensen down to 1 life, and we see a War Leader's Helix from Herkimer quickly ending the game.
Yeah, wow, that was the quick turn 7 kill from the skies, Rock of Skies here.
Yeah.
Woo. Yeah, I think the look on Huey's face says it all.
Yeah, the 5th straight top 8 is not going to be easy here. I would say I was expecting a longer game 1. Certainly not a, turn 7 kill. Maybe one out of, I could have seen one out of Jensen's deck, but I was not expecting Herkimer just to curve out.
Some kind of little debate on the floor here. I can only assume that we're getting a ruling on.
Possibly, yeah. Probably just discussing, looks like they're discussing the play there. All right, so we talked a lot about the boarding in this matchup. Is there anything, we've seen Jund the last round playing against blue-white control, blue-white-red flash. Typically, Jensen will go up with more Reckless Returns, Underworld Connections, Duresses. What does Herkimer have for the board?
Herkimer has access to Negate, which isn't an all-star, but it's pretty good as just a means to sometimes protect a big flyer, but more often just stop a Rakdos' return or a Planeswalker. Beyond that, though, he doesn't really have a ton. He's already main decked out, with the possible exception being a Geist of St. Traft.
And you like the Geists coming in this matchup?
I think so, particularly since Edict effects are a little bit less popular than they were in previous weeks. But that said, certainly not positive he wants to do that while he's on the draw,
Yeah.
But I think it'll be decent for him because there aren't a ton of answers that Jensen has. Liliana might come in, but it'd be a little overworked. It's going to be working overtime anyway.
Yeah. So a lot of times I think when we see this matchup, we've seen a lot of blue-white and blue-white-red decks without Geist in their board. But when you have someone like Herkimer who has Thundermaws, Aurelia, and then Geist of St. Traffs, typically in this matchup, I still sometimes think of the blue-white deck as the more control deck, as the deck that, Jund has to eventually become the aggro deck. Does that stop being the case here?
I mean, this is very close to just being an aggro control deck, really. These flash decks,
Right.
this one in particular, he doesn't really take control beyond. Sometimes he just casts Sphinx's Revelation, but like he's not even playing Supreme Verdict in the main deck. Oh no, he has two. He has exactly two Supreme Verdicts in the main deck, but he's definitely much more just trying to knock chunks out of Jensen's life total rather than take full-on control of the game.
So it's really just counter, it's like counter punch a little bit, counter some spells, sneak into Thundermaw, sneak in a couple burn spells.
Well, and just a lot of the problems in the format are best solved by racing.
Yeah.
And Thundermaw, Hellkite, Restoration Angel, both good at racing. Given that the first game was so beatdown oriented, I think it's possible that Nathan actually reconsiders whether or not to bring in the Geist, because he may anticipate Jensen going a little heavier on the removal than he normally would. Now, how much of that removal is going to be edict effects like Devour Flesh or Liliana or Tribute to Hunger? It's unclear, but it may cause Nathan to give some second thought to whether or not to go on the Geist of St. Traft plan.
So he's thinking, Jensen, not knowing Herkimer's list, might think that Herkimer's playing more than 9 creatures. He might actually keep in more removal than one would normally expect in the matchup.
Yeah, although it is also possible that Herkimer figures, well, Jensen's deck was weak to my creature beatdown before. Maybe I need to play to my strengths.
Yeah. Certainly was very effective that game. As Jensen had a full group of 7 cards that really just wasn't able to do much against Herkimer.
Savage tie breaks on this one, ending up with these two gentlemen having to play for the final slot.
Yeah, the benefit of having to play for this final slot is whichever player wins this game will almost certainly be the number 1 seed in the top 8. So there's kind of, they had to battle one more than everyone else, but there is a reward waiting for them.
There are no undefeated players?
The undefeated players are double drawing, so the winner of this should leapfrog into first place.
I see. Herkimer packing his cards up.
Yeah.
I got a feeling we're going to see a little bit different of a texture from Jensen. I mean, obviously that game, he didn't really have a lot of cheap plays. His hand was just full of Thragtusks, which, contrary to popular belief, is not always what you want all of the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, it can be raced really well by Herkimer, by Restoration Angels and Thundermaw Hellkites. So it's interesting, Huey wants to board in more card advantage in this matchup, but at the same time he also has to keep a certain amount of removal to make sure that, draws like that don't happen.
I think the removal is actually not bad as long as he has the right types of removal. Right. But I think that game we might have seen, Jensen with an Abrupt Decay, with Thragtusks just not drawing enough removal.
Yeah. All right, so both players starting out here. It looks like going to be a lot of trading of lands. This time, though, Huey has a turn 2 play with Scavenging Ooze.
Now, how good do you think the Scavenging Ooze is in this matchup? I mean, there's no Snapcaster Mage. Oh, no, there are Snapcaster Mages, actually. Herkimer has Snapcaster Mage instead of Augur of Bolas. Yeah,
so he has Snapcaster Mages, so it gains some utility there. They seem a little underwhelming in the matchup just because they can get outclassed. That said, it is a threat. Herkimer's going to eventually have to answer this Scavenging Ooze, right?
A threat? Man, this could be an answer to Geist of St. Traft.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the plan. But yeah, from the looks of it, Herkimer has already found an answer. He's just, biding his time, waiting for a good opportunity.
In anticipation of a possible Snapcaster, Huey uses his mana there just to exile the Azorius Charm.
Makes sense.
Continues his beats. He's going to go ahead and put Herkimer down to 14. Remember, Herkimer did shock on turn 2. So we see then Olivia Voldaren coming out for Jensen.
Most likely eating, the Searing Spear is on the Ooze. Now, does this suggest a Snapcaster Mage?
Well, I think, it seems like he's planning. Yeah, he has another Searing Spear for the Olivia, it looks like. So maybe he wants to go ahead and spear the Scavenging Ooze, because Scavenging Ooze has the potential to grow a lot more than Olivia does, and he doesn't want. Olivia will be in range of Searing Spear for quite a while.
Absolutely. If you killed the Olivia first, the Ooze could just eat it.
Right. All right, so we see here the Olivia tried to swing, got Searing Speared, and the board is cleared once again. Huey's going to get to play a 5th land. He can go for a Thragtusk here, but there is the possibility of Essence Scatter or Syncopate. So instead, he goes for Underworld Connection.
Yeah. The 2 negates could potentially make this play devastating, but From the looks of it, yep, he gets away with it, and now he's just going to start riding that Underworld Connections to a pretty sizable advantage here.
Yeah, we saw Underworld Connections be pretty strong in these last matchups. It's one of the cards for Jund to play. It's one of Jund's best weapons here.
Wow, and Herkimer goes the other way with it. Assemble the Legion.
Yeah.
Really changing it up, because this way it's a threat that, you know, regular removal spells aren't going to be able to stop, and it kind of forces Jensen to go on the aggression, or on the aggressive.
Yeah, so right now Jensen was, his plan was to sit back, use Underworld Connections, draw extra cards. So how many answers, that begs the question, how many answers to Assemble the Legion does he actually have? I mean, it's possible he's boarded in Golgari Charms, but if he hasn't...
and it's unlikely that he has.
Yeah, if he hasn't, I don't believe he has an answer to this Assemble the Legion. I think he just has to race it.
Yeah, the answer is, okay, we'll race. I mean, obviously Bonfire can slow it down.
Yeah, but if the game goes, say 6-7 turns from here.
Yeah, well, you don't have that kind of time.
Yeah. So Jensen does tap out. He's going to commit for a Thrag Tusk, and Assemble the Legion starts working. And we see a Detention Sphere now from Herkimer, targeting on the Underworld Connections, actually, to stop Jensen from drawing possible outs here.
Makes sense.
And, okay, Soldier token still in play, just using a different token. Alright, so passes back to Jensen. He has a Rakdos' Return, he has a Duress, he has a lot of possible plays here. So I'm going to go ahead and first look at the hand with a Duress. Let's see.
Sphinx's Revelation, that's a timely card to be able to hit.
It looks like Sphinx's Revelation, Snapcaster Mage, Mizium Mortars, and then just a War Leader's Helix off the bottom of the screen here. What that does mean is between this and the Rakdos Return in Jensen's hand, he can, if he wants to, take all of Herkimer's cards.
Absolutely. Now, Herkimer, the Snapcaster Mage will hit play, but at least it won't flash anything back.
Right.
Which, probably a pretty good move right now, because you're not going to get that much more utility out of the Rakdos' Return, and this way, at least the Snapcaster Mage isn't triggering anything.
Yeah, and there are a lot of really potent threats in Herkimer's hand. That War Leader's Helix and that Mizium Mortars. So Swing from Thrag Tusk takes care of the Soldier token, and Rakdos' Return is going to take care of the rest of the cards. And it looks like he didn't flash the Snapcaster into play. He just let it get discarded.
Definitely a fortunate turn of events for Huey.
Yeah, so kind of got a free 2-1 there into the graveyard. Assemble Legion, though, up to 2. Those 1/1s doing an excellent job of holding off Thrag Tusk. Herkimer still at a healthy 14 life. Though, Huey does have the potential to get through in the form of Kessig Wolfrun.
Absolutely. Which is part of the reason why Herkimer needs to block at all opportunities to keep his life total as high as possible.
Alright, Herkimer looking for more. We see a flashback of Think Twice. It'll find Steam Vents that comes into play tapped. With 2 soldiers in play. He's actually going to go ahead and attack one of the soldiers, planning to just chump with the other one.
Absolutely. Force Huey to use the Kessig Wolfrun and spend a lot of mana if he wants to do any damage.
Yeah, Huey also has a Doomblade in hand, so that does give Huey, I believe, the option just, to, if he has one more land here, I believe he can, he can make a Thrag Tusk and Doomblade.
Yeah, that's a pretty good turn.
Whereas, with Kessig Wolfrun, he would be 1 mana short on that play.
Yep. The question he's got to ask himself is, how much do I care if Herkimer plays a Restoration Angel or a Thundermaw Hellkite?
Alright, so we see in Huey's hand a Putrefy, a Doomblade, a Thrag Tusk, and looks like a Stomping Ground.
He does Doomblade the token.
Alright, so being as aggressive as possible, that one swing may come back to hurt Herkimer. That's given Huey the option to swing 5 here, play Stomping Ground into play, untapped, and make a second Thrag Tusk.
Absolutely. That's quite a board now. I mean, Herkimer's Assemble the Legion is still growing out of control. But at this point, Kessig Wolfrun is threatening to end the game next turn.
Alright, draw from Herkimer. I believe it's Aurelia the War Leader was his draw for the turn.
Wow.
A lot of damage. I don't think it's 25 points
No,
worth.
it's definitely not. It's definitely not. What he can do is soak up some Thrag Tusk damage. If Aurelia blocks 1 Thrag Tusk and all 4 tokens block the other, if Huey pumps all the way, he'll 9/5. He'll do exactly 5.
Yeah, he can make it
Herkimer
9
can live.
trample. One of them can become a 9 trample right now, right?
Right. Which with both Thrag Tusks can be blocked by 4 power or 4 health.
Toughness.
Yep. and that means that. Is he only attacking with the Aurelia?
Yep, because if he loses a soldier here, then he actually dies, right?
But doesn't the... Oh, right, because yes, one's on defense.
Now, if Huey drew another land here, which he didn't, then I'd say it would be lethal anyway.
Yep.
So, not lethal yet. He didn't have the land. Wolf Run... Oh, no, he did draw the land, so that actually makes it 10. Yeah, he drew the land for the turn. That'll make it trample over for 6. And William Jensen, 1 game away from a 5th consecutive top 8.
Yep. Here we see little inches, that needing that Snapcaster Mage as an extra blocker.
That Snapcaster Mage is an extra blocker, and then the turn where Assembled Legion made 2 soldiers, we saw Herkimer swing with 1 soldier. That also invited some extra damage there too.
Yep, it's a game of inches. John, definitely not the easiest deck to play against, but as we saw game 1, Herkimer very capable of just thrashing a Jund opponent. If he draws some of his flying creatures.
Yeah, so it looks like Huey now going back to his sideboard here. I think my guess is he's contemplating whether or not he wants Golgari Charms. It's very possible that the 60 he sleeved up for game 2 is completely cold to an Assembled Legion. Golgari Charms not the worst in the matchup, right? Because it can have some value against a Supreme Verdict, or maybe a removal spell. It can regenerate, and it gives him some game against Assembled Legion.
He might have also slightly overcompensated for creatures and been like, okay, look, maybe he's playing me for a sucker. Yeah. He played all those creatures game 1, but it's very possible he just drew 3 of his 6 creatures or whatever.
Right.
And now he's got Assembled Legion. He might not even have very many targets for maybe I need a little bit less spot removal, because even that game we saw, Huey still had a Putrefy.
Yeah. Also, he saw the Detention Spheres post-board that game, so that's more incentive to put in Golgari Charm.
I think once you see both Detention Sphere and Assemble the Legion, Golgari Charm starts looking... And plus, if nothing else, there's going to be occasional times where you hit where you either hit a Snapcaster Mage or more importantly, where you can actually regenerate a creature killed by a burn spell. Sometimes you're going to Golgari Charm and Olivia just to save it from a spear.
Yeah, so it looks like Huey actually switched 2 cards right there.
I bet they're the 2 charms.
I would imagine they're the 2 Golgari Charms.
But now Herkimer's on the play, and I think it's possible that even if Herkimer did not have Geist of St. Traft in game 2, that he now has it for game 3. He's on the play, and the texture of game 2 was much slower, more methodical, and involved a kill that surely has Huey sideboarding in more cards that do not stop a Geist of St. Traft. Up next, I guess up into this final game, we're gonna see. I'm kind of interested in just how many different ways Jensen has to interact with a Geist of St. Traft, because from the looks of it, it's really, if you're on the draw, most of the time you're not going to be able to bonfire or mortars in time before you die. You really just need to have those Liliana of the Veils, and it is possible that even if he boarded them in for game 2, he might have boarded them out for game 3, given the way that the last game went.
Yeah, especially when I see something like Assemble the Legion out of blue, white, red, there's a little bit of an indicator that his opponent's on flash, right? He saw game 1, Thundermaw, Hellkites, and Restoration Angels. But if I'm a Jund player, I'm not necessarily thinking my opponent is playing Geist of St. Trafts out of the board. It's not every blue, white, red deck does that.
Certainly a fair number, but certainly not all.
Right, so it's a lot of it's a pretty big hedge to just put the Lilianas in anyway, as they can be pretty dead cards sometimes.
Yeah, definitely sometimes awkward against these decks with Think Twice and a lot of flash creatures and haste creatures.
Yeah, we do see a mulligan to 6 from Herkimer.
Herkimer to 6. Huey, I think, on the tanks snap keep. No!
On the mulligan.
Also, wow.
All right, so 6 on 6 for game 3. Remember, this game will put the winner not only into top 8, but will give the winner the number 1 seed for the top 8, which will give them the play throughout the entire top 8.
This might be the biggest match of William Huey Jensen's career. This is it.
This is it.
Well, no, the moment is now, though. So many of the other matches he's ever played are in the past.
Right.
This one is by far the most present.
Yeah, it's happening right now.
Absolutely, and his back is against the wall. We're in the final game of the final round for the record.
All right, well, it doesn't get much more present than this. Both players getting ready, trying 6-card hands. Okay, if Huey didn't board in the Lilianas, what does he have? What can he do against a Geist of St. Traft? He has to block it with Scavenging Ooze?
Yeah, realistically, he has to, not have a creature, a small creature like a Huntmaster or a Scavenging Ooze get burnt by a series of Searing Spears or even Pillars. I mean, there probably aren't going to be that many Pillars in Herkimer's deck, but War Leader's Helix and Searing Spear are both, and Mizzy Mortars are all excellent answers to any kind of a creature that could potentially try to get in the way.
All right, so 6 is kept by both players. We see Sulphur Fall starting out by Herkimer. So not a real dual land, or not one of the shock lands, so it's possible he's going to have a lot of lands come into play tapped here. And
Turn 2 Slayer Stronghold, not playing another tap land, indicating a Syncopate.
yeah, or Syncopate or Think Twice. So he's going to go ahead with the turn 2 untapped land, turn 3 another tap Sulphur Falls.
Now this very loudly telegraphs Syncopate to Jensen. What's going to be interesting is, yeah, Jensen plays the Farseek. Now did he slow roll that?
Yeah, he had the Farseek on turn 2, and he opted to play it on turn 3.
Nice.
I really like that play. Especially when your opponent's when players are on a mull to 6, I really like plays that kind of test your opponent on how many lands they have. So what I like about this play is by getting this extra land, Huey has to think it's possible that Herkimer just doesn't hit more lands, and by making this play, he can maybe strand the Syncopate for the entire game.
Oh yeah, particularly since he's a land ahead now.
Right. You see that Clifftop Retreat from Herkimer. All his lands coming into play tapped still. And looks like Huey has both Thragtusk and Rakdos' Return.
So at this point, it's time to decide, yep, he's going to draw out the Syncopate with the Thragtusk, but it turns out it was a bluff.
There was no Syncopate. So Huey, with the first threat on the board, is going to be Thragtusk. He has some ways to back it up. He has another Rakdos' Return. He has a Doomblade in hand. He's probably going to start going to town here.
Now, do you think he's going to block with an Angel? No, he just takes it. He wants to leave his mana open. Too many bad things can happen if you tap out during Huey's main phase.
And they would here, right? There is the Rakdos' Return is in Huey's hand.
Yeah, and from the looks of it, Nathan actually does have a Syncopate, but he was just figuring that the Thragtusk is just the bait.
All right, so Olivia on the table. So this is one of the situations as a control player that I always get scared of when I play against Jund. Insofar as I want to Wrath the board, but if I Wrath the board, then he's going to resolve the Rakdos' Return. So we see that end step Restoration Angel from Herkimer, still on 5 lands, drawn a 6th.
He's got a Detention Sphere, and so he's obviously going to hit Olivia, but the question is, I mean, are you going to just play the untapped land and be like, well, this way I can Syncopate for 2, so there's no reasonable size Rakdos' Return that's actually going to hit me?
Yep, and it looks like exactly what he's going to do. It looks like the remainder of his hand is both a Syncopate and a Sphinx's Revelation.
And the Sphinx's Revelation is so key here because so far he's been able to keep pace more or less with Jensen. He's falling a little bit behind at certain points, like his life total is half that of Jensen's, plus he's going to have to use 2 cards on the Thragtusk. That said, if he can stick a Sphinx's Revelation for 4 at some point, that's going to be a pretty big game.
Yeah, so we see a Dreadbore from Jensen. He has both that and Doomblade, opting to use the sorcery speed removal first. Swinging the Thragtusk for 5, that'll drop Herkimer down to 8 life. And then he follows it up with a Farseek.
Further making the Syncopate a dead card. Although he could have Syncopated the Farseek here, but it could be just that he wants to make sure that he doesn't get Rakdos returned at any point,
Right. Now, one question is that if Huey just never casts the return, he's threatening a 2-turn clock here. Seems like he's forcing Herkimer into a situation where he's going to have to just Revelation.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible that Jensen just Rakdos' returns this turn anyway, after attacking, because he figures, well, that way at least he won't be Sphinxing during my turn.
All right, so another Restoration Angel drawn from Herkimer, but no more lands. He passes the turn back to Jensen, and Jensen swings the Thragtusk. Herkimer is going to have to put the Restoration Angel into play.
Right, he can still hold up. He's still holding up Syncopate for 1, but it's a small consolation prize.
Yeah. If
Jensen wants, he can Rakdos' return for 3, which I believe is enough, right?
Yeah, he has the return for 3. He also has this Doomblade here, though.
Oh, just threatening to...
And a Putrefy.
Sure. Just to knock Nathan super low so that,
Just never cast the Rakdos' Return.
yeah,
Nathan's having trouble answering Thragtusk.
Right. Make him deal with this Thragtusk, and then threaten the Rakdos' Return when convenient.
So down to 3, Nathan is on 7 lands, 3 life. There's a Revelation for 4 possibility here, but Huey's going to have a great response to that if that's what Herkimer goes for. You see a draw there. Another land from Jensen. He's going to go for the lethal swing. And
surely we'll see a Sphinx. Is there any way he doesn't do it for 4? Oh, okay. He's got the Angel.
Cats Restoration Angel and the Doomblade from Jensen.
Yeah, that's going to be game.
So neither the Revelation nor the Rakdos' Return ever cast.
It's the threat of both. Both players respecting and correctly realizing that, yep, they both
They
knew.
both showed that they had the cards.
And so William Jensen wins 2-1 over Nathan Herkimer. Both players top 8ing yesterday as well, right?
Herkimer actually did not top 8.
Oh, okay, yeah, we saw him yesterday.
Yes, he